Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:12 p.m. Today is Wednesday, and we're here, of course, to update you on the situation on the power outage to the downtown core that resulted from the fire on Saturday evening. I will start today, then we'll hear from Gianna Manus, the CEO of NMAX, as well as Chief Tom Sampson from the Calgary Emergency Management Agency. So let me start by once again saying thank you to all Calgarians, residents of the area, businesses and their employees, building owners, property managers for their patience and their cooperation over the last few days. And profound thanks to everyone in our community who offered assistance. Today I get to announce that the end is in sight. And before I do that, I also want to say thank you to the hundreds and hundreds of my colleagues, workers from the city, from NMAX, and from partner agencies who turned from their Thanksgiving weekends to help with this significant rebuilding effort. I'm pleased to announce that things have been going better than expected. You're going to hear more from Gianna in a moment, but NMAX now believes that they are in a position to re-energize the entire affected area tomorrow at 5 a.m. Now, this is a complex operation. While NMAX is the lead agency, this involves more than 20 city business units, as well as partners including Shaw, TELUS, the Building Owners and Managers Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the Calgary Stampede, Alberta Health Services, CAN Task Force 2, and the Department of National Defence, all of this coordinated by Calgary Emergency Management. And the folks in Calgary Emergency Management will give the final go-ahead. If everything goes as it seems to be going, SEMA Director Ken Uzelok will give the go-ahead to begin the re-energization operation tomorrow morning. If anything goes wrong, we will know overnight, and we will get that messaging out, but we don't expect that that will happen. Now, once we're re-energized, there will be some drama. And so it is time for us to prepare for all of that as well. Number one, as always, is we need to keep everyone safe through the operation. Once the grid is re-energized, a wide range of activities will occur. Entry to buildings will be delayed, so you can't go back right away until the structure itself, the building itself, comes back online and is checked. Every building will be inspected for safety systems and ventilation in the parkade, and will power up water systems. Then and only then, property managers of individual businesses will be able to determine when they're safe to occupy. And don't forget, some things will take time. Hot water, for example. Got to heat up the hot water tanks again. So that will take a little bit of time. Meanwhile, a lot of work will be happening throughout the neighborhood. Temporary generators on buildings, LRT platforms, traffic signals, and cell towers will be deactivated. Residential waste collection will be arranged, and partners like TELUS and Shaw will be checking their system. So give them some time and some space to let all of this happen. I know everyone wants to get home immediately, but let's give these hardworking folks an hour or two, a few hours, to make sure everything's ready to go, and please consider returning home a little bit later in the day. A couple key points to emphasize. Number one, if you got questions about your building, check with your building operator or property manager. Number two, contact your insurer if you haven't done so already to determine what support you'll be provided through any policies you may have. Deputy Chief Sampson is going to go through a checklist for residents who are returning home. I'll highlight some of the key issues. Number one, think about what you were doing on Saturday night and what was on and what you may not want to leave unattended. So make sure you turn off your stove. Make sure you turn off any other appliances that would not normally be on during the day. Make sure you check on hair dryers that have fallen into the bathtub. That is an oddly specific piece of advice. It must come from experience that I don't want to know about. But check on all of these things. Number two is turn your attention to food. If you haven't already cleaned out your fridge, you're going to want to do that right away, and there will be some additional residential waste collection in the neighborhood that Deputy Chief Sampson will talk about effective Thursday evening. And finally, you want to be careful with your water safety as well, and Chief Sampson will tell you more about that. Let's turn in a moment to businesses. The commercial enterprises and employees that have been displaced. For businesses, this message is simple. It's the same as it's been since Saturday. Work with your landlord. Work with your building operator. They're professionals, they know what they're doing, and they'll make sure that your building systems are properly operational. And also, of course, contact your employees to let them know what's happening. For employees, check with your supervisors to find out the plan. Individual businesses may have different operational route plans, but as a general rule, you're going back to work on Friday. if not earlier, if everything goes as anticipated. If you're driving, make sure that the parkade is operational. For restaurant operators, there's nothing saying you won't be able to open for lunch on Thursday if all goes according to plan. However, remember, as always, food safety is in paramount. Don't take any chances. Follow the guidelines and regulations and follow our basic rule. If in doubt, throw it out. Okay. So, good news all around, largely good news thanks to the hard work of the women and men of NMAX. Let's turn this over to NMAX President and CEO Gianna Manus to talk about their incredible efforts. Gianna?
Thank you, Mayor Nenshi. And as the mayor had mentioned already, we are targeting to restore power to the entire section of this system by 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. Now, just as a reminder, and this is just a reminder, this has been a major rebuild of this section of the system. So we may encounter some unexpected issues as we bring the power back on. If that becomes the case, I can assure you that we will work to get the power back on as safely and quickly as possible to resolve any issues that we may have. But again, we are targeting to restore power by 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. So a couple of things, and the mayor has mentioned many of these, but I'm going to reiterate them because they are public safety concerns, and safety has always been the most important thing that we focus on here throughout this event. So what can people do to prepare for the power coming back on? And what we're really asking people to do here is think about what you were doing when the power went out. And if you had appliances on, or things in your kitchen perhaps that were on at the time the power went out, things that you wouldn't normally leave unattended. If you can safely do so to get back into your residence, or if you can safely do so in advance of the power coming back on, please make sure that these are turned off or unplugged. If it's not safe to do so, we'll simply ask that as soon as you can re-enter your home that you attend to these things and make sure that all of this is turned off or unplugged if you wouldn't normally have had them on. So that's just in the interest of safety. Think about what you were doing, turn off what you can. Now, a few things as to when the power came back on. The mayor has already mentioned that once the NMAX system is restored, there may be some time before individual buildings have fully restored the power because they must reset some of their systems. But in addition to that, again, I want to just mention that NMAX will have the power back on, but our work will not yet be done. We will have continuing work to continue to rebuild and complete the rebuild of the system. So while electricity is flowing, we've got some additional work to do to complete our work so that this section of our system is reliable on an ongoing basis. So with that, I just want to remind people you're going to see NMAX in the neighborhood. You'll see us in the streets, and there may be some additional lane closures in this area while we complete our work associated with the rebuild of the system. So we ask for everyone's patience while we continue to complete our work even beyond the point of power being restored. We've had a lot of questions, of course, about the investigation and what has occurred here, so let me just speak to that for just a moment. We are working in cooperation with the Fire Department of Calgary. This investigation work is really focused on a number of complex technical issues, but really what we're trying to do is determine the answer to three basic questions. First of all, what happened? Well, we already know, and we all know that there was a fire in a manhole, and this fire occurred, and as a result of that, there was significant damage to the NMAX cable infrastructure, and as a result, we had to have this outage, and we've had to rebuild the system. But more importantly to this question and beyond this is, why did this happen? Now, the answer and determining the answer to this question, this is a complex technical analysis, and this is going to take some time. As we have been saying the last number of days, that this analysis will be done in a way that follows the information that we have, and when this investigation is complete, only then will it be complete. We're not going to put a time frame on this. It's important that we follow the information and make a determination as best as we can. So when we reach the point where we have more information to share in this area, we are committed to doing so. We simply don't know at this stage when that will be, but we do expect again that this will take some time. The third important question, once we can determine what we can to the answer of why did this happen, the third question is, what, if anything, do we need to do to reduce the possibility of this ever happening again? The answer to this question, of course, will be related to the answer to the second question, or the why question. And again, when we have more information to share on this, we are committed to sharing that information when we can. As we talked about, this was not a repair effort. This has been a major rebuild of our entire system, of this section of our system. So I would like to just mention that we know that this has been very difficult for the people of Calgary, the people who live and work and own businesses in this section of Calgary, and for that, I'm sorry. We have and will continue to work diligently to make sure that we can get the power back on, as we've stated, tomorrow morning, deal with any issues that may arise as we bring the system back online, and then continue to finish the rebuild of the system so that we can once again enjoy a safe and reliable electricity system in this part of Calgary. And in fact, the rebuild opportunity here, and we have taken the opportunity as a result of this to rebuild the system back stronger. On behalf of the entire ENMAX team, I would really like to extend our thanks and our appreciation for the patience and the support that everyone in Calgary has given to us, particularly those people who have been most impacted by this outage. And I look forward to being able to say that we've got the lights back on in this part of Calgary again by tomorrow morning. With that, I will turn it over to Chief Deputy Sampson.
Thank you, Gianna. As the mayor's mentioned, this has been a complex process and has involved ENMAX and 20 more of our partners all working in conjunction. I'm going to talk about some aspects of that process, but let me highlight a couple of key things. And I think if you find us a little bit redundant, it's because we're trying to emphasize how important some of these points are. We expect minimal traffic disruptions as a result of this. We've certainly got generators on the lights, and those generators will stay in place until we know that the network is solid. We don't expect any major problems with the C-train or transit. There are a number of things that will happen once the building power is restored. So property managers and building operators will, 1, check your ventilation system. 2, they'll look at your safety systems. 3, your water. 4, your elevators. And 5, your heating. And they'll be making sure and working with appropriate city personnel to make sure they're appropriately inspected. If you're in a building that's closed, I would strongly encourage you to take the lead from your property manager. When they say you can go ahead and enter the building, that's when it's safe to enter and not before. With respect to alarm systems, one of the challenges is whenever we re-energize a building, alarm systems may go off. We encourage you to treat the alarm system going off as a real emergency. And keep in mind that it may go off several times. And so each time we want you to respond appropriately. Our concern, of course, is, as the mayor mentioned, if something has been left on the stove, something like that, we may have an active problem. And as such, the appropriate response is to follow the evacuation procedures that you always have in your building. We want you to do a safety check. So once you've been given the return and you move into your property, do, in essence, a little safety sweep. If you have natural gas, you can stop at the door and just sniff. And if you smell a problem, back out and dial 911 immediately. Once you go in, check the stove in particular, and make sure that all the other appliances, as the mayor has mentioned, are all off, that you don't have a problem. Carefully plug in any devices that you've unplugged. Now you can use them again. And if there are any problems with your building systems, please work with your building managers. With respect to the water service, a couple of things we need to say. Certainly, the drinking water is safe. But one of the things that we've noticed is some of the taller buildings don't have water pushing up to the top floors. So when the water is re-energized, we want you to go on, crack that tap open slightly, let the air bleed out, and then run the water for a little bit so it runs clear. That's the best way to ensure that you have great drinking water that Calgary's so proud of. With respect to spoiled food, if you didn't clean out your fridge, it's going to smell. So clean out your fridge well. You can use a 10% bleach solution to wipe it down. But clean out your fridge, and you can place either the food at the Moana Armory in the garbage bins that are provided there, or you can put it on the street. And up until 7 p.m. Thursday, and we'll pick it up right on the street. So out onto the street in a bag, obviously, and then we'll get it as quickly as we can. We know that you may have some security issues when you enter your building. And if you think that a crime has occurred, that someone's been in your residence that shouldn't have been, if it's an emergency, dial 911. If it's not an emergency, dial the 266-1234 number for the Calgary Police. Now, you're well aware that we provided 300 rooms for accommodation for people who are displaced. If you're staying in a hotel that's been provided by the City of Calgary as a result of this event, regardless of when your CHIT says that you're to check out, we would like you to check out tomorrow morning. So check out of your hotel tomorrow morning in accordance with the hotel rules. A bus will be provided for you at each hotel at 9:30. It will leave at 9:45 precisely and will take you back downtown to the Moata Armory. So in essence, we're going to try and help you get home. Finally, let's remember it's a complicated process, and we will not go forward until we feel it is appropriate. There's many people involved, there's many interdependencies in what we're doing. And while we hope for the best, unexpected occurrences can occur, and as a result, some things may not go exactly as planned. Our first priority will be the safety of you, the community, and our employees. Thanks very much, and I'll throw it back to the Mayor for any questions you might have.
Thanks, Tom. So once again, power back up, 5 in the morning. Should be able to get occupancy shortly thereafter, depending on the property managers. When you get back to your residences, just make sure that you are staying safe. Questions? Yes.
I know you said it's going to take time before we know why this happened. Do you even have a general idea?
You know, we genuinely don't know much beyond what Gianna has mentioned, that we have to answer those 3 questions. Our priority was making sure we had the evidence and the information that we needed in order to do the investigation, but more important than that, getting the power back up. So, you know, I would encourage you to think of this, Gianna won't like it when I say this, but think of this as an NTSB or a CTSB investigation after there's been a transportation problem. It's something that can take days and weeks, months sometimes to actually sort out.
What should the rebuild cost?
We don't have an answer yet, do we, Gianna, on that?
Well, we can just.
How much did the rebuild cost? And the answer is, we don't know yet.
No, you know, all along this priority has been, and as with, I know the city has mentioned it, but for INMAX, we're collecting and tracking this this information, but we don't have all of that yet. Our priority was to get done what we need to get done. And in fact, even though the power again will be on tomorrow, we still have more work to do to complete the work. So we won't have that information for some time.
But once we have it, we will give it to you.
What about the city?
No, still don't know. We've got, you know, some out-of-pocket expenses like those hotel rooms and so on, but that's just a fraction of the full cost of the deployment. We are, if nothing at the city, very, very good at tracking our costs. So once those things go into the system over the next week or 2, we should have a good answer.
You had said that this could potentially take up until Saturday. It's Thursday, it'd be 2 days earlier than you previously had thought to do on Sunday. What do you attribute that to?
Well, you know, Gianna can speak more to that, but fundamentally, people work damn hard, and were very ingenuitive in the work that they were doing. So one of the things that I know from Gianna and her team is that the NMAX engineers over the Thanksgiving long weekend not only figured out how to rebuild it, but figured out how to rebuild it better and stronger and with a better design, and they did all of that, you know, over Thanksgiving long weekend, and then we're able to really get to work fast, and that's something that's pretty impressive. I mean, we had, 3.5 kilometers of new cable in place in 48 hours' time, which is unheard of.
Is the infrastructure much different now? The new infrastructure that's been put in, the wires and stuff? What was in our property?
The question is the infrastructure much different? And one of the things that I want to say is that even before this was a highly reliable system. Now, we had an event here that occurred, and as a result of the event, we took this opportunity, since we had to take everything out of this particular area and build it, we took this opportunity to build it differently and build it better. One of the things I'll say is that 2 things about why we've been able to accelerate the timeline over which we originally had said. One was that it's part of what mentioned the engineers, what they did in looking at a different way to rebuild the system than it was than how it was originally. In addition to rebuilding it stronger and better, we also were able to accelerate the timeline by changing the configuration. So that was one of the biggest factors in us having the opportunity. If we had rebuilt it exactly like we had rebuilt it before, we would still have been looking at a more extended timeline. So again, this system is still very strong, and it is still a good, reliable system, but anytime we can make something better, we're going to take that opportunity, and we're going to do so.
So say this is brand new, 2014 model. When was the last time that it was ever changed?
Well, actually, the question is this, it's not that it's brand new in that all of the equipment that we're putting in is brand new equipment out of the warehouse. The wires are straight off of the spools, but there's not anything new in the configuration of how this part of the system is connected to itself and other areas from this manhole connected to the other manhole. The other manholes in this section, it's configured differently, but it's the same type of equipment, and it's all the same type of equipment because what we have in our system today is highly reliable equipment. So it's to draw an analogy, it's not an iPhone 6 versus an iPhone 4, but it is just brand new equipment, and we've designed it and connected it slightly differently, which again gives us improved redundancy in the future. If something like this were to happen, and just allows us that opportunity to do it different since we had to start from scratch.
What are the preliminary lessons that NMAX will take away from this event?
Well, I would say that we still have work to do in collecting all of those. The lessons that we will learn, a lot of them will come out of the investigation that we're doing. We always take an opportunity to learn lessons when something like this happens, whether it is from the investigation, how to communicate to the public, the coordination that we do. We have continued to enjoy such strong support and coordination with all of the city departments, as well as Shaw, for example, who was also involved in this. So I don't have all of the preliminary. We continue every day to try to make it better, communicate better. Use of social media, we continue to expand how we use that. So we'll be able to come back when we can settle down and just take stock of what we've been doing over the last number of days and provide more information on some of the things that we have learned.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of experts are involved in the investigation?
There are a variety of people that are going to be involved in this investigation throughout. And as I mentioned, that the second part of the investigation, which is the determination of why this occurred, has the potential to be a lengthy process. I'm not going to go into any more specifics, but the experts will reach out and work with the city. We will also reach out to other experts that have experience in this, as well as the internal NMAX team. All of the resources that we need to be able to answer that question will be brought to bear on this issue. I'm not going to talk any more about the specifics, but again, this will take the time that we need to take to try to find that answer to that question, and then be able to identify what if anything, we can do going forward.
Is this weeks or
I
months?
don't know how long it's going to take, however long it takes. I would say that the expectation is that it will be longer than a month, but I certainly think that it has the possibility to last much longer than that. We're not going to put a time frame on that. If we were able to do it faster than that, much like this restoration, if we can do it faster and have a conclusion that we're comfortable, that we believe is a good one in terms of accurate, as best we can tell, we will do it as soon as we can. But we're not going to put a time frame. We're not going to let time determine the answer. We're going to let the information that is gathered, all of the experts that are necessary, determine the answer and the time frame on that investigation. I know you guys have a lot of questions on that, and you continue to do so. What I will say is we are committed, when we have information on this, that we can share, and when we have that, no matter when that time frame is, we will share that, and we are committed to sharing that information when we know it.
As we always do.
Are you considering compensation for residents and businesses in the form of a credit on their bill or a break on their bill?
Certainly, these are questions that both the City of Calgary and NMAX will address as we go forward. I'm actually glad you asked it, because I forgot to say one thing, which is if you are someone who is going home and you have had to throw out a fridge full of food, or you will have to throw out a fridge full of food, and replacing that food is going to be a significant hardship for you and your family, please do contact 211. and we'll see what we can do to assist you in that. And our goal has always been to focus on people who are most vulnerable. Once we have a sense of the cause of this, we can figure out whether there's a broader situation here. But for right now, our focus is to focus on those who are vulnerable. And I will remind everyone, as I often do, that it is really, really important to be prepared. That folks should have that 72-hour kit for what will happen in case of an emergency, and folks should have an emergency fund set up too, so that you have the ability to be self-reliant should things like this happen. And I think that that is something that all of us can learn from and make sure that we do. I've got a wind-up flashlight and a wind-up radio, but I don't have 72 hours of water set aside, and that's something I got to do. I should also say, by the way, Jan, I really enjoyed your analogy because I have a brand new iPhone 6. You'll notice it's still in the plastic, and I'm still using my 4-year-old iPhone 4. So I know how it works. Anyone else?
Any update on how much the hotels and
Do you have a new number for me, Tom? We were at 86,000 yesterday. Have you got anything yet?
I don't.
We can probably extrapolate from 86,000 yesterday to somewhere over 100,000 now, but we don't have an exact number, sorry.
Is it expected the lodging in the Big Four will be used tonight, or?
How are we feeling on that at Mawada? I think we're okay, yeah? Yeah, so it was ready in case we had an upsurge of people asking for it today. Because we have had people who really tried, to be fair, really tried. And there was one couple that told me yesterday, we've been trying, but man, oh man, I've blown out my knee and the 17 flights of stairs isn't working anymore. So we did have an influx yesterday and the day before, but today seems to be pretty stable.
just one last thing? Is there any sense at all at this point about the economic impact of this event to businesses?
I don't have a big number for you yet. Certainly there were 2,100 businesses impacted. A number of those were office-style, professional-style businesses where their business continuity plan was such that people were working from home and, not business as usual, but able to do continuity. The interesting question for me is about the small businesses, the retail businesses, and the restaurants. Certainly it is challenging for people to lose 3 or 4 days of revenue. Luckily, it was over the Thanksgiving break. But as you've heard me say before, the best thing we can do to help those businesses is to patronize those businesses. So on Friday and after that, if you're going out for lunch or doing some shopping, if you can actually patronize a Subway in that picture right there, if you can patronize the businesses in that area and help them recover quickly from the loss of a few days' income, that would be a great thing every one of us can do. All right?
Just really quick, are
Yeah,
there
sure.
areas as you guys attempt to get the power back on tomorrow, are there any particular parts of the downtown that Calgarians are encouraged to avoid, or is it kind of as it is now?
No, we've been very, very good. Our colleagues in roads and transits have done a great job of keeping traffic moving through the area. So given that, there's a reason it's at 5 a.m., in the hopes that we'll be able to get there before the onslaught of the morning rush. So everything should be fine. But I will encourage Calgarians to do listen to the radio, watch TV, check out Twitter, and look at calgary.ca in the morning before you leave, just in case there was a little too much drama and we're having a problem, but we're not anticipating anything. All right.
The second sort of crisis this fall, as far as power and.
I'm a bit tired of it, but yes. Yeah, I've been jokingly saying that this is, I think, my fourth one in 18 months, all of our fourth one in 18 months. And it'll be all right if there aren't any more for a little while. We're very happy to be good at this. We're very happy to have a resilient emergency management agency and plan and facility. We're very happy to help others learn from our experiences. But I'd really like 6 months off. Thank you all.